Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios, and with me tonight is
Trylko. Hello, everyone. Andrew, you know what I'm thankful for?
What?
This football season is almost over.
It is, yeah. This is episode number 61, by the way. Yeah, it's almost over. Thank God. Because it is just, it's been like, I don't know, putting nails in your forehead or something. I don't know.
Oh, that's the equivalent of sitting in a nearly empty Bright House Network Stadium on a Thursday night.
In the rain.
In the rain.
It was horrible.
I will say, having watched the game with you in the stands, that you do make it more enjoyable.
Oh, yeah?
It's the R-rated version of the podcast. it's what you can't play during the podcast. It's family-friendly entertainment, this is. But in the stands, and by the way, with the crowd as low as it was, 23 and change they announced.
Yeah, right.
Surely they just.
2,300.
I think the team could hear you because we could hear them.
Good.
Right? From where we were.
Yeah.
We could hear them on the sideline. We could hear them on the field. I think they could hear you.
I'm glad, yeah. I wouldn't be screaming at the top of my lungs if I didn't want them to hear me. I want somebody to hear me. Yeah, I mean, whatever.
Can we talk about the good thing? First drive and Traquan Smith with a touchdown.
Yeah, and that's it.
And that was it?
That's the good part. That's all there was.
Good catch. Good drive.
Yeah.
Once again, UCF leads the game. And then
the other
44
drive,
straight points. Yeah,
the other drive where they had the touchdown called back by holding or whatever was a great drive and play as well. But then, that was it. And they pretty much just hung their heads, and that was it for the game. So
I made a mistake this weekend and went back and watched it again. That's a glutton for punishment right there.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. I wanted to be better prepared for the Knightline podcast.
Speaking of the Knightline podcast, really quick, I need to get this out. December 13th on YouTube, live at 7:30 p.m., we're going to have our football postseason wrap-up show. It's going to be exciting. Kyle Israel's going to be here. The two of us are going to be here, and we still have yet to name a special fourth person.
You're really building a lot of interest in that.
Yeah, there will be one.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But anyway, December 13th, YouTube, live. I'll put a link to it up on UCFKnightlinePodcast.com, 7:30 p.m. It's going to be fun. You guys can interact with us on the YouTube thing by sending us messages and asking us questions and all that stuff. I can't wait. I had to get that off. I wanted it in the first couple minutes of the show, so
promote away.
Yeah,
that's good.
I want more than 2 people to tune into that.
So you want better than what I saw on the broadcast when I watched it back, when they went to the Tiki Bar and were interviewing East Carolina fans.
They were actually up there?
Well, if you looked at it from the vantage point of the stands,
I took a picture
our
and
fans sold their Cabana tickets to East Carolina fans.
The curse of the Cabana.
Yeah.
This is all the curse of the Cabana.
And then there's this iconic shot there of the lone fan in the sea of yellow seats there. But just the fact that our fans would sell their tickets to East Carolina fans who infiltrated the Tiki Bar is just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, there were some guys as well walking around with a flag that come up and sat in our section. And our section is a faculty and staff section that I sit in. And had to really restrain myself not to even say anything to them, but I really wanted to get up and rip the flag, out of their hands and pee on it or something, but I didn't.
So will you use such restraint this coming Thursday, season finale, rivalry week? South Florida comes to town.
I probably won't have a voice on Sunday still.
Thursday. Sunday.
Yeah. We'll be doing the podcast on Sunday. The game is on Thursday. I think I'll be doing a little bit of yelling for sure. And it may be, such a small crowd that everybody in the whole entire stadium will be able to hear me.
Before we get to the good news of the week and delve more into the rumor mill on the coaching hire, bring back Kyle Israel, who has been away the last couple of weeks, Can Danny Barrett get a win in that season finale? I'd love for the guy to get a win.
Yeah, I don't.
And you know what?
so.
You can make the season just a little bit better if you could just beat the Tampa school.
With the way the players are playing, with the whole thing, I don't think that's going to happen. I think USF, unfortunately, is playing really good, and we're playing really, 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 really bad.
That's a lot of reallys right there.
I
How many
mean,
reallys did Danny Barrett use in his post-game
I'm not sure,
comments?
but his opening statement was not very long, so let's get on with that.
Tough one to say the least. Came out, first drive, looked like everything was going our way. Couldn't stop them on the first drive. Second drive, I thought once we had the touchdown call back from the penalty, it looked like all the momentum and energy that we had kind of left the sidelines. And then the turnover there, again, forcing the football there, I thought hurt us as well. And then trying to find a way to stop them the first half defensively, we just couldn't get off the field enough time. So only thing that we did good tonight was execute the onside kick coming up the second half. Other than that first drive, not a good performance at all.
Well, there you have it, the wise words of Danny Barrett. And, he was right. Not a lot to, there were two good plays, the touchdown and the onside kick. How many times have we kicked an onside kick and gotten it, I wonder?
Not many times.
Not many times, yeah.
Not a hallmark of the O'Leary era.
Yeah, I don't think you would see him doing a lot of onside kicks, but, whatever. It is what it is.
Good luck, Coach. Coach him up. Get that win on Thursday.
Yeah, I think good luck to all these coaches because they're going to be, moving out within the next week probably and moving on to wherever they're going to go. So I wish these guys luck. I mean, everybody maybe except for Brent Key.
Oh, boy, there you go again. Yes,
yeah, I'm not a Key fan, and I hope that he falls into disparity and gets to coach at the University of New Hampshire or something crazy like that.
Stop. He'll land somewhere. But more positive. The hiring of the new athletic director, much discussed these last few days. Your reaction as you listen to his press conference, and how do you feel about it now?
I'm excited. I think that he's the right guy. I think that he, we'll play some clips here in a little while, but he said all the right things. Now I hope that he does it.
I thought, and I said this to you, missed marketing opportunity, number one, is that I really thought that he was going to address the crowd, what little there was of it, at halftime. Boy, there's some loyal folks that sat in the rain on a Thursday night to watch a winless team. And I think he could have made a moment for himself and gotten some buzz by coming out to the center of the field and saying, give me some time, folks. We're going to bring this program back to its glory. And I think he would have got a rousing applause. Now, I mentioned that I rewatched it on TV. He didn't do an interview with the ESPN crew. So I'm happy that he was schmoozing up in the boxes.
Yeah.
Okay? But a missed opportunity to address your faithful that are in the stands.
You're very faithful. I think
in
that
the
those
rain.
are your most faithful, that sat there the entire game. We didn't leave until the very last second of the game.
And then no interview on ESPN with the crew. So
Definitely,
missed opportunities there for Mr. White to introduce himself to us as the fans and to a nationwide audience.
Well, and I posted a picture on Twitter, which you can follow us at UCF_Knightline on Twitter. I posted a picture on there before the game started, and I said, it was a picture of the underside of Bright House Network Stadium, where the concourse, if that's what you want to call it. And I said, this is where Danny White should be instead of up in the booth. He should have been down there talking, mulling around and talking to people.
And maybe he was, and we didn't see it, but I just think he missed a moment
we were
to
right
address
in
the
front
crowd.
of the place that we go in is right in front of those elevators, and that would have been a perfect spot for him to be. Elevators to the boxes. So, whatever. That is what it is as well. But that would have been a great opportunity. You're right. To address some people, to shake some hands, whatever. So.
I think it's interesting that former athletic director Todd Stansberry was making $375,000, as media reports have it, and our new athletic director making $525,000. So
with
somebody's pockets, they're pulling some dollars out of those pockets. And then, of course, the news this week that Houston's coach making $1.5 million. Houston wants to hang on to him. Tom Herman offering him $3 million. Reports out of Memphis that they're offering their coach Fuentes $3 million. Boy, the price tag of hiring a new coach has seemingly gone up in a few days.
Well, both of those schools have, quite a bit of money to spend, and, that may not be something that UCF has, but I think we need to come up with some more money, because I think it's going to cost a little bit more money to get, somebody in here that will do a good job. I mean, it's a different game than when they hired O'Leary. That was a long time ago.
A different era at UCF. So Danny White, coming from Buffalo, most likely starting full-time either late December, early January, but left UCF after Thursday's game to go to Atlanta, meet with a search firm that's working on the coaching hire, and had offered in press conference and news interviews that there may be a few names on his radar UCF's not looking closely at. So I thought that was an interesting tip of his hand, that there be some names that maybe we're not talking about.
I'm interested to find out who that is. I mean, because if there's names that we haven't already thought of that nobody's talking about, wow. I mean, we've got a good list of names that have come around.
The same names, though, that
right.
Some 12 programs across the country, Iowa State now rumored to be firing their coach. They're all these names are on everybody's list. So it's interesting what he's going to use as an evaluation in looking at coaches.
Yeah, let's hear from him right now on the whole thing about hiring a football coach.
I approach each coaching hire the same way. I'll meet with a group of returning student athletes on the football program after the game tonight. That's where I like to start. I like to get their perspective. I think this actually came up in one of the meetings this morning, being on the younger side of the ADs across the country. Wasn't that long ago, I was a student athlete myself and a coach working closely with student athletes. I want to get their perspective about what's going on, and I do that in every coaching search that I've gone through. In football, where there's the uniqueness is just the size of the roster and the size of the staff. You can probably hire a head coach in a sport with a smaller roster, less people involved, and be less focused or worried about their management style and how they manage a large organization. In football, I think you really got to take special time to think about that. And I think we're at a position where we can be looking at candidates with experience in the chair as a head coach and others, but certainly coaching candidates with a lot of experience. I don't need any extra incentive. The market is a lot of jobs open this year. I understand that, but I would have moved at warp speed regardless. It's not just about moving fast to get the right coach. That coach has to then start building a staff. And there's competition in that. And then obviously getting on the road and start recruiting that next class of prospective student athletes. So we're going to move very fast.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more. The necessity of hiring a coach, I think, that has ties to Florida, that can hit the ground running and make a lot of calls and make a lot of visits in a short period of time.
Recruiting ties.
I'm hoping that this head coach hire is in the next 7 to 10 days before even that AAC title game on the 5th of December, and that we have that person in place and that they work it as hard as they can before that recruiting window closes and that dead period begins. That's, this person can't come, I hope, from out of the blue and not know any high school coach in Florida. I hope it's somebody that can pick up the phone and start making some inroads very quickly.
Yeah, I think, they have to. It would be dumb to hire somebody that didn't have. Yeah, I don't think he's that dumb to hire somebody that doesn't have any Florida coaching ties.
Which is why I think it enhances the possibility that it could be Jeff Collins out of Florida, who's got those ties, and Gene Chizik has worked the state and has ties to UCF. I think it enhances the profile of those two individuals. I just hope that this hire comes quick and that it is met with as much positive reaction as the AD hire has been.
Not just the recruiting, but the other part that is important is what they're going to do. They're going to excite the fan base. They're going to get, fans in the seats, and he talked about that as well.
I think there's a lot of creative ways to generate interest, and I think some of that is probably in place here. I've heard good things about the pregame tailgating stuff, and the things that are occurring, particularly engaging the student body. I think we had record student attendance the first couple games, this season. But at the end of the day, it's what happens on the field that ultimately builds a sustainable fan base. I think that while this year has been a challenging one, I'm sure, for the fan base, there's been an awful lot of success in recent memory. And from what I understand, there's talent on the roster, and I won't be out there selling a rebuild in terms of a football program. I'll be recruiting coaches to come in and raise the bar competitively right away, get us back to where we just were.
Well, I'm liking that he's using we and us. That's good, because he already feels part of the family, and he feels like wants to get it back to where we were before.
It's hard to not imagine, though, that what he is working with and stepping into is a rebuild.
Absolutely.
It doesn't seem like what we're seeing in terms of product on the field means a quick turnaround.
No. And I think that you're crazy to think, if you think that it's going to be quick. Nobody's going to come in here and next year we're going to win the AAC championship. Because
you're looking at essentially next year's team.
Yeah. So I think that whoever it is going to have a year of recruiting under their belt, and not this next season, but the season after that, we can look for something really to happen, unless, they can reinvigorate these players and really be a good talent evaluator and really figure out where the problems are. There's coaches out there that can do that, and I think that that's an incredibly important part of who the next coach should be, is traits like that.
And he comes in where he needs to reinvigorate the community and the alumni base, the fan base, students, get more buzz. Can you even imagine what the crowd's going to be on Thanksgiving? They announced 23 and change during that rain, but boy, if it was half that, it was lucky that it was half that. And that's a tough sell on Thanksgiving night. So he's got his work cut out for him. So this is important to see now, while this search has been going on for a while, and names are being developed and interest is out there on this job. He comes in, fresh perspective, family ties that are incredible, his family coming down and being at the press conference, good family pedigree in terms of coaching and the institutions that they're at, his dad at Duke. So he's not, a newbie at this. Even though he's a young guy, he comes in with a fresh burst of energy, and I'm hoping that coaching hire matches what we've gotten to know a little bit so far about Danny White.
Yeah, and he's going to have to evaluate a bunch of other coaches too. Football is not the only issue around UCF. And he had a very good track record there in Buffalo, with not giving a lot of chance to some coaches, not hanging around for a long time. If they didn't do a good job, they're out.
I mean, we had a great interview with the Buffalo SB Nation guy, and talking about he turned over a lot of coaches in a short period of time, which gives you the feeling that if he's going to sink or swim, he's going to do it with his own people. A very smart approach in management and business. Hire people you can trust to do the job and get results. All these coaches inherit a new athletic director. He's evaluating. It's not just what he sees on the court or the field now, but he's going to look at what have they been doing, what's been the academic success, the graduation rate, all of those things. And you've got some coaches now. We've gone into this talking about basketball, and the season is underway. Microscope a little bit more focused on Donnie Jones with men's basketball, Joy Williams with women's basketball. Got to show progress.
Terry Rooney with baseball.
They got to show progress and show it soon.
Yeah, and we have a clip from him talking about that as well, about how he evaluates coaches.
We evaluate, and I don't evaluate on my own. I work with our leadership team in athletics. We evaluate coaches the same. I think coaches should have a 5-year window to build a program. And at that point in time, we need to decide, what does this program mean to us? And are the resources there, as I mentioned earlier, for us to expect to compete for championships? And that doesn't necessarily mean we won a championship. A lot of things can happen, as student athletes and coaches in the room know. The ball can bounce in one way or the other, and there's a championship team or a non-championship team. But are we in the hunt? Are we in that top third of the conference? And if we're not, is it believable by the student athletes on the team, by our staff, and by the fan base that's engaged in it, that's coming? And unfortunately at UB, we walked into a situation where there was a lot of sports with coaches that had been there for a long time that you couldn't say yes to any of those things. and we didn't have a lot of competitive success that we've now changed, and that'll continue to grow. Here, there's been a lot more competitive success, and so I don't expect to be faced with as big of a challenge in that way. But that's how we evaluate coaches. We're very consistent about that, and what I preach to coaches, because I want programs built the right way, is in your first 5 years, do it the right way, and focus on recruiting the right student athletes in your team, because we don't just want to be a blip on the radar. We want to win that championship, and then the next year it falls back. We want sustainable success.
What I like about what he says there is he talks about championships a lot, in that, wants to win the championships, isn't going to let a team or a coach be a dormant thing that just spends money, that he's going to make sure that they win and win championships. And if it's not going that way, then you're out. So,
and it's not an entire rebuild across the program. Softball was success. Women's soccer was success. Volleyball's coming off an AAC. Rowing, cross country. There is success. But those big profile sports, football, basketball, baseball,
I
need
think
to be contending for championships.
Basketball, for sure, is something that he's going to pay a lot of attention to. He was a basketball player at Notre Dame. He's definitely got an eye for basketball. I'm sure he wants his basketball team to win. I don't know how good they were up there in Buffalo with basketball, but I think Donnie Jones really needs to
they got to win
be
this
getting
week.
Everything together. Yeah, and it's looking like it's going to be a lot better for sure. But I think the one person that should be worried the most is Donnie Jones, and he really needs to get it together this season, and maybe that's going to put a fire under him to make these players play a little bit better and to win some games and even go as far as going to the tournament or something. I would love to see that.
But before we get to evaluate that, we will be able to evaluate Danny White's hire of a football coach. We're going to have speculation long before that recruiting class is announced in February, long before spring practice. We're all going to weigh in. Danny White wasn't even on the radar, really, for most of our fans. There was a talk of, AD at Bowling Green with former ties to UCF. Is it possible that of all these names we're talking about, he's going to come out of left field with someone that no one's really talking about, that will give him an opportunity to put his stamp on the program and perhaps not hire a retread or a known commodity that has both positives and negatives coming into the job?
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if that happens at all. But it's got to be somebody that excites the entire thing and puts fans in the seats.
Your guess, when do we hear this announcement?
Well, everybody's saying with a week to 10 days, that's what they would like to see. I would like it to be done in that time frame. I mean, we're wrapping up the football season. Everybody is, except the teams that are going to go into bowl games. There's the playoff and all that stuff. So they need to get it done. I mean, I would love to see it in 7 to 10 days. I mean, to be honest with you, I think
sounds like something good for us to discuss and beat around on next Sunday's show.
Yeah, well,
it'd be good to have it made this week.
Yeah, hopefully we will know. In fact, I think some were even speculating that it would be done by Thursday night's game, which I don't know.
Maybe
about
maybe the contact will be made with that individual. I don't know that it'll be publicly announced during a kind of a quiet Thanksgiving week. It's good that we have Kyle Israel back, former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel, who gives us some perspective on the Danny White hire. I also think it's interesting what he shares his opinions on perhaps some of the deeper pockets that may allow for a higher profile, higher priced coach.
Welcome to Inside the Huddle with former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel, brought to you by the Little Greek Fresh Grill. Fresh, flavorful, fabulous. Waterford Lakes, 855 North Althea Trail, Orlando.
Kyle, before we get into the discussion on the new athletic director and the rumor mill on the coaching hire, a brief moment, if you will, on Thursday's loss to East Carolina.
First of all, guys, it's great to be back. I know it's been a couple of weeks. since I've been on the podcast, but appreciate you having me back. First of all, I think, one of the biggest things that I see is this team makes easy things look difficult, if that makes sense. And, that's one of the things I know that when we were struggling back in 2004 and when you watch struggling teams, the things that should be easy and the things that you should be able to kind of do by a reaction rather than having to think about something, those type of things seem to be very difficult. And obviously the young team, it's hard to even say that they're young after having played so much this season already. 11 games, a lot of those guys have a decent amount of experience, but I think noticeably at the quarterback position, going, as a unit, going 11 of 32 for 100 and something, 121 or 131 yards, isn't going to win you football games, especially against East Carolina, even though they were only 4-6 going into the game. And, I don't think any guy in that quarterback rotation is really doing anything to separate himself from the others going into this crucial, pivotal spring practice at that position under a new coaching regime who we have no idea what type of offense the new coach is going to run. So, I think disappointed in the quarterback position. Obviously, there's not much fight left in the dog in that team, and it's blatantly obvious. And then it was just a poor day, frustrating day, I think, for UCF football when it was kind of like the culmination of our season. Storms on national television when we're 0-10 and nobody shows up, and then we get blown out, and that's about as bad as it could have been. But there were a couple bright spots.
You mentioned not much fight left. Fight and pride and a rivalry game. Can they bring it Thursday against South Florida?
Well, I would like to say that a lot of these players know each other, but when you look, I was watching the South Florida game the other night, and every time they mentioned a player that made some sort of play, they were from the state of Florida and really from the southern part of the state of Florida. And we don't have many guys left from that part of the state anymore. But from a rivalry perspective, I mean, there's some type of pride you got to be playing for at this point. It obviously doesn't look like it in some of these other games, but you think it's the last game of the season. It's another Thursday night national television game. You would hope that the guys could muster up some courage and grit and grind one out. I mean, South Florida's a good team. I think they're going to be tough for this team to beat. I think this is probably, unfortunately, the way that we are now, probably one of the worst teams we've ever had in this program's history, unfortunately. But, there is a lot to play for in regards to that pride and to your territory. You're playing South Florida at home. And you always want to win that game every year. You can kind of throw the records out the window. But, South Florida's playing good football right now, and they've got a lot to play for, including bowl game selections and other things.
Obviously, we know that that's probably not going to turn out very well out there on Thursday night, Thanksgiving. But there were some good things this week as far as hiring a new athletic director. What do you think about that hire, and do you know anything about this guy? Have you been able to research him?
Well, number one, I think it's probably one of the most pivotal, crucial hires Dr. Hader's ever made in his career at UCF. When you think about timing, direction, where this program wants to go, where we have the potential of going, this hire was so crucial. Not having a head coach in place, I'm saying things that everybody knows, but those are so magnified, in this type of situation. So I think with Danny White, the first thing that I look at is his age, being 35, 36 years old. I think we needed somebody to come in here and breathe life into this program, especially from a football perspective. Now, we have a lot of great athletic programs here at UCF. Soccer, track and field. Hopefully our basketball team can turn it around this season. Volleyball. There's a lot of good at UCF when you look at the overall athletics perspective. We need some new life, obviously, in this football program. And I think Danny White, I really liked what he said in his initial interview was he doesn't have any problem reaching out to his fathers and mentors that he has in the business. And, sometimes you'll hear athletic directors or people in key positions get hired and say, I'm going to do things my way and do things this way. And I'm sure that Danny White has an idea of what he wants to do. But when you have somebody like your father, who's the athletic director at Duke, you have a brother who's also an associate athletic director, to say that you're going to lean on, mentors and people that those are things I want to hear at UCF. I want somebody that's that's young and fiery, but has a network that they can reach out to for whatever the case may be, whether it's new Nike contracts, obviously conference realignment. And I also liked what he said about focusing on being as good as we can be in the athletic conference. When you look at this conference and where it was mid-season, you had 4 teams ranked in the top 25. I think that we need to refocus. And I've been part of it, myself by, kind of talking Big 12 expansion, et cetera. But we need to focus on being the best team in the American Athletic Conference again before we can get anywhere else. And so I like that his vision is that. I like that he stated that. And then when you look what he did at Buffalo, I don't know if you guys have ever been to the University of Buffalo, but I played a game there in our last 0-11 season in 2004, and it didn't seem like a very great place to go play college football. But for Danny White to go there and create more funding of the program than they've ever had in the past, and to have ticket sales go beyond anywhere they've ever had, and to get a new apparel contract, and all doing that, at the age of 32 and 33 years old when he started that job. I think it's probably the best hire that we could have gotten at this point in time. I like that Danny said this is a destination job for him. I believe it when he says it. Now, does that mean that period of time down the road, if he's able to turn this around, he doesn't get bigger offers? No, it doesn't mean that. But for the time being, he's focused on UCF, and I really like all those things. And I think Dr. Hitt, Mr. Garvey, who was directing the committee here on campus, and then obviously Parker Research, I think they all did a really good job in this process and in getting the best guy in here for this program at this point in time. And I'm excited to see what he does in regards to hiring a coach.
To your point, then, perhaps not much of a learning curve with the family history and his experience. Anything about it, though? We've been positive as a fan base the last couple of days. It seemed to put a little wind in the sails. Anything, though, about it that we should be cautious about in his background or his most recent experience?
There's nothing that sticks out to me. I think you always got to be a little bit cautious. But, I would rather be people buying in and going in full steam ahead, because right now, when you look at where we need to go, there are some big decisions that need to be made. So I think we need to put our support behind Danny White. Caution, sometimes I like to say you got to throw caution to the wind to make big leaps and bounds. And I think that's something that we're going to have to do as a fan base and let Danny White do what he does. I have full confidence in him. We haven't seen a lot of what he can do. But I think if there's anything that would make you be cautious, it's how good this guy could potentially be with his pedigree and his experience thus far this early on. I don't see him being here into his early 40s. So at some point in time, there's somebody that I think is going to have to take this program over from athletic director position, because the guy that I think we have now is a rising star in college athletics.
We spoke a little bit about the pedigree of him and where his father works is an ACC school. Does this bring us any closer to the ACC? What do you think about that? Does that change the tide a little bit? Maybe pulling from the Big 12, and there's been ramblings of teams possibly going to leave the ACC.
Well, I don't think it hurts, right? That can't hurt you. I think that connection is crucial. Duke's the institution that it is. You think of what his father has done there in a football perspective. Duke is pouring millions and millions of dollars into their football program and have really turned that around over the last, 6 to 8 years. But when you look at conference realignment, I almost want to shy away from conference realignment talk. When you look at us at 0-11,
I just had to throw it in there, though.
Yeah, I understand that you did, and I was a leading guy in my mind in creating that talk and telling things, in these conversations early on in the season, saying, hey, we got to be careful because there's people out there from the expansion world that are looking at us. I was right there with you. Does it help? Certainly. Do we need to focus on what we can do in this conference? Absolutely. And if there's a time and place where expansion is going to take place, I think that because of the things that UCF has to offer, not just on the football field, but the university and the location and all of that as a whole, that will sell itself. But we got to get back to being elite in this conference before we can make that move, I believe.
So the hiring of White, generally well received by UCF's fan base, and now all attention focused on the hiring of the new football coach. A lot of names out there. Before we talk about some of the names, what do you think the most realistic time frame is? As we have discussed earlier, it seems so critical to get someone in before, the recruiting window closes for the year. Your thoughts?
We need to get somebody in here probably in the next 10 days. I don't know how, the one thing that's going to be difficult is that a lot of teams are still finishing seasons. A lot of teams are going to be playing in a bowl game. Now, I don't think the bowl game affects a coach leaving a university. We've had coaches and coordinators in the past leave before our bowl games from UCF to go to other teams. But I think when you look at conference championships and one name in Gene Chizik, if he's really truly a candidate, North Carolina's probably going to be playing in the ACC championship. So I think that would probably hold off until after that game, or maybe they announce it early. The one thing that I've heard in rumblings and rumors that Danny White is bringing a whole nother level of candidates to kind of the table that maybe we're not yet talking about. And so I think that there's this whole kind of banana peel that needs to be pulled back as to what is on his mind and who is on his mind, more importantly, in regards to this coaching position. Now, I've heard some rumors that there's some very influential people higher up in our boosters group of individuals that are willing to spend some money themselves out of pocket for a new head coach in regards to salary. That is something that was brought to my attention. So maybe there's some guy with that type of information, and with Danny White coming in, maybe there's some guys that we maybe weren't considering due to money or due to just the general idea of who would be on the market. There may be some new names in that mix now because of that potential extra funding from our boosters and from the different, line of thought from bringing Danny White in.
I think that the money situation did change a little bit because Houston just offered their coach $3 million to stay after 1 year there, and he's done a great job there, and I'm sure that he can go get any job that he wants at this point. So it sounds like, within the conference, the coaches are probably going to get paid a little bit more just because of that. One of the guys that you had talked about in the past was Jeff Brom. You were saying that he was an up-and-comer and you were interested in him. Where does he fall into this? And maybe Les Miles' name has been mentioned. There's been quite a few names mentioned, but is there any information that you have or that you could give?
I still think in my mind Jeff Brom is one of the best candidates out there when you look at the point of the career that he's at. He coaches with his two young brothers. They're doing a really good job in Western Kentucky. When you look at the type of offenses they run and the way that they've been playing defense, I like that. I'm interested in what Jeff Brom and his brothers and that coaching staff would bring to the table here. When you look at a Les Miles, talking to one of my good friends that was an employee in the SEC, I'll say that. There's a real chance that Les Miles could be gone from LSU. Does he make it out of the Power 5 conference in regards to other teams letting him slip out of their grasp if he is available? I think, in my opinion, what you've seen out of Les Miles is that Les Miles is an elite recruiter. And I think there's two types of coaches in college football generally, guys that can recruit and guys that are really good in-game coaches and preparation coaches. I think George O'Leary was a great preparation and in-game coach. I wouldn't put him in the elite recruiting group. Gabo Sweeney at Clemson, I think he's an elite recruiter, and I think he's a pretty good in-game coach and preparation coach, i.e. his team's number one in the country. But generally you see these guys that are just better recruiters or they're just better coaches in-game and preparation-wise, and I think Les Miles is shown over the years with some of the decisions and time management that he's probably a better recruiter than he is an in-game coach, and I don't know if that's what some of these other schools in the SEC or beyond are looking for. So do I think that there's a chance at Les Miles? I think it's really slim, considering what he's been paid and the success that he's had. But if he's out there on the market, I think that he's a guy we should definitely approach because I think that you can sell a lot in regards to UCF. Other than, you're living in Orlando, Florida, not Baton Rouge. And there's a lot to sell. There's a lot of great things. And you think that these coaches still have families and a life outside of football. A little bit. They want to be not always, I don't think coaches always want to be in just a small little college town, but but a place with great school system and a community and many things to do like you have here in Central Florida. So I think there's other aspects to the coaching position here at UCF that coaches are going to consider outside of just the football and just the school when you think about some of the things that makes this university attractive in conference realignment, which is the city that we're in and the market that we're in.
So hypothetically, if you were the AD and you had an unlimited budget, who would that be? Name a coach that you would go after immediately.
You can't name Nick Saban. That one you can't name Urban Meyer. None of those.
I think that I really think that Tom Herman would be a guy. When you look at the demise, what has happened to Ohio State this season offensively, I think it's clear that Tom Herman was a guy that, although he had great athletes last season, he knew how to use them and knew how to game plan. And he's obviously done a good job of that at Houston. I think he's a guy I would go after if he. Did he take that Houston job today? Did he accept that new offer?
I have not heard that.
Okay, so if he's on the market, I would definitely still go after him. I think that Gene Chizik and what he's done with North Carolina's defense, the way that they've competed in the ACC, I still think that you may not have to have an unlimited budget to get him, but he's a guy that I would still consider and at least interview. If I had an unlimited budget, I'd go after Harbaugh with how he's turned around Michigan, but I don't think that's realistic. It'll be interesting to see how things kind of unfold with some other position openings that are currently there, head coaching positions that are currently open. But I really like Braum. I really do. Out of Western Kentucky, I like Tom Herman, and then I like the guy up at Toledo, and his name Matt Campbell, I believe, at Toledo as well. I still like those names. I'm really interested. If I had an unlimited budget, I think I would go after Les Miles. If he was available, with what I think he could do in the recruiting realm and at this level and with his experience and when, competing for a national title almost every year. So those are kind of my guys. And I think that ever since Danny White was hired, everybody's been guessing at coaching names. But, I think that we'll have that resolved here shortly.
Two of the most mentioned names, you've mentioned one in Gene Chizik. There's also Jeff Collins, defensive coordinator at Florida.
Yeah.
First on Chizik, ties to the program, but perhaps at UCF his window's past might be a thought. And is that a hire that, in light of the Danny White hire, would excite the fan base? That's the first question related to Chizik, and then I want to follow up on Collins.
I think it would. It would excite a portion of the fan base. I think that, not everybody's going to be happy with our choice any direction that it goes. There's always going to be the people that would have wanted somebody else. But, I think that there's an opportunity that Gene Chizik, gets the fan base excited, especially with what North Carolina does the rest of the season. I know the former players that were here. Gene Chizik recruited me at Auburn. I really liked him in my early on recruiting process at UCF. I know that he's a guy that could do great things for this program. I think when you look at in my opinion, his downfall at Auburn was getting too tied up on the political side of things, losing his focus on a team. When you think about the boosters that Auburn and the type of weight that they hold against the program. I don't know if he's going to excite a lot of people because I don't know exactly what everybody's looking for. But I'm confident in Danny White. And Jeff Collins, my thoughts are up in the air. I think that he would be excitable. I think that he would find a way to get people excited. We've seen that in the past with the way that he treats social media and his kind of the excitement that he brings to the table. Is he ready to be a head coach? I'm not sure about that. He's been with a number of different coaches that are really good. That I do like that fact. Although some people say, "Wow, he's bounced around a lot." I would say, yeah, he has bounced around, but he's coached under some really good head coaches. He's seen a lot of different experiences, and I think he's a candidate that should be considered as well.
Earlier, you mentioned that a coach might be strong in recruiting, a little less so in game management. Others, good game day coach, a little less on the recruiting. Assess those two, Collins and Chizik. What do they bring on those two parts of the equation?
Well, I certainly think that Jeff Collins brings absolutely recruiting. And just the way that he's a very engaging guy. And, so is Gene Chizik. But when you look at Jeff Collins in today's day and age and social media and connecting with high school players and those type of things, I think that Jeff Collins probably has an edge there in recruiting for sure. And when you look at Gene Chizik, he's had to recruit in some really tough places. Ames, Iowa is not an easy place to sell an 18-year-old to go play college football. And obviously they struggled at Iowa State, but who doesn't struggle at Iowa State for the most part? At Auburn, he did have some good recruiting classes. Now you're recruiting to Auburn, but I think that Chizik is probably the better in-game guy when you look what he's done at North Carolina, and when you look at what he did with the talent level and how good he was here at UCF back in the day. Jeff Collins has had a lot of great athletes everywhere he's been. Florida, he walked into an incredible situation, probably the best defensive front in the country outside of Alabama. And some great defensive backs, and he had a good team with him, good defense at Mississippi State. But, I think that what Gene Chizik has done at North Carolina and the way that their defense is played, if you're going to have a defensive-minded coach, I think Chizik probably gets the nod as far as in-game strategy and coaching and preparation. So I think they bring different things to the table, but I think they both have positives and maybe some negatives. I mean, Gene Chizik, let's call it what it is. He's a retread head coach. He's been a head coach. He won a national championship. Despite what you think about that Auburn team winning a national championship with Cam Newton and those guys, you gotta have a coach that understands how to deal with personalities like a Cam Newton. I think that Gene Chizik did an incredible job that season dealing with the whole Cam Newton fiasco and everything that surrounded that, and ultimately kept them focused enough to win a national championship and live up to the ability that they had. I think you can't overlook that. And just having been to that level and to win a national championship and to understand what it takes to be successful, I think those are all things that are important. And when you look at Jeff Collins, to be all over the SEC, to have his stint down at FIU, he's kind of been a fast riser, and people, I said, well, he's jumped around so much. Well, there's a reason, because he's good. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think they both have positives that they can bring to the table. But if it's recruiting, I'd give Jeff Collins the nod, and if it's in-game preparation coaching, I would give it to Gene Chizik.
Things being the way that they are, with the group of players that we have, you're not going to be able to go out and recruit an entire new team, so you've got to work with some of these guys that we have. What would be the number one most important trait that a coach could have to come in here and turn this around?
The number one most important trait, gosh, that's a really good question.
Thank you.
I think focus. And when I say focus, I mean that it's going to take a lot to turn this around. And I think focus in a strong vision, a vision for where they want the program to go, a vision for how they want to get there, and a plan, and to have a plan in place in accomplishing that. A trait, I don't know if those are traits, but those are things that I think that need to be there. I think a guy that understands this day and age and the recruiting process and everything that goes into it, I think that's an important trait. But I think a focus and a vision for where they want to take this program, and how they want to get there, I think is the most important tool.
Yeah, whoever it's going to be, I believe, is going to have to be an incredible talent evaluator. Be able to see, through all the muck of what's happened this year and be able to find the good players. So that's going to be very important as far as, what I think that they should be. I know you've been busy this week. We haven't talked to you in a couple weeks, but what's going on at the Little Greek?
Well, we just took part in the Taste of Orlando yesterday in Waterford Lakes, but we're gearing up for a busy holiday season. We've been right up there at the top Little Greeks for the last couple of weeks, in out of all 27 Little Greeks. So I'm just happy with the support. If you haven't been into Little Greek, we're over in Waterford Lakes, just around the corner from Best Buy. There have been a couple more people. I actually had a guy come in on Thursday before the game that said he was from North Carolina and listened to the podcast and wanted to come in and get some food before the game, and we took a picture, and so I appreciate that. So, there's some people coming in that are listening to the podcast and mentioning it to us, and that's all great. So if you can come out and support and let us show you what some good fast casual Greek food is all about.
And do you guys have gift certificates that would make good stocking stuffers?
Thank you, Trace. Yes. We do have gift certificates that make incredible stocking stuffers. You're doing my job for me. I appreciate that.
Give the gift of the little Greek this holiday season.
Yes, perfect.
That was awesome. All righty, man. Thank you very much. I know you're busy. We'll let you get back to doing what you're doing there. Man, it's been incredible to have you this season. We've got one more game to talk about.
We'd really like you to stick around until they win so we could talk about that.
Yeah. Well, we got a whole off season and another season ahead of us, so there's still plenty to talk about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
All righty, guys. I'll talk to y'all later.
In the American this past weekend, some ranked teams, Andrew, tumbled. Now, 21st ranked Houston. Boy, they lost 20-17 at UConn. Cougars undefeated no more. Then 21st ranked Memphis fell 31-12 at now 25th ranked Temple. Better news, though, very quiet, under the radar. Our newest addition to the AAC. Now number 16 Navy thumped Tulsa 44-21. Of course, the Cows crushed Cincinnati. Boy, what does that tell you? Cincinnati beat UCF, what was it, 52-0, and South Florida led them 51-3 at half. Goodness, we could be in for quite a steamroll on Thursday.
Yeah, I hope we don't get to that 65 number. That would be bad. I mean, they're going to love that. I'm sure that the USF people are just going to eat this up. But anyway.
And SMU picked up its second win. SMU, of all teams, 2 wins more than UCF. They beat up on Tulane. But game of the week coming up Friday, Navy at Houston. The winner of that wins the American West.
They have that Friday at noon that we had last year.
Wins that American West and goes to the AAC title game. That's a good game.
I was really rooting for Houston the other night just because of their undefeated record. I didn't want to see them fall to UConn, especially.
Yeah, is there any trophy involved in that one?
I don't think so, but maybe there will be next year. Maybe Houston will come up with a trophy.
Friday night, Tulsa needs to win at Tulane, kind of likely, to become bowl eligible. Saturday, East Carolina needs to beat Cincinnati at home to become bowl eligible. SMU travels to Memphis. UConn is at Temple. Owls, if they win the East. So you could have Temple versus Houston or Navy, and that's not a bad AAC title game.
Absolutely not. No, I'm surprised at Navy. I mean, I didn't really think that they would come in here and do that, but they have. So they have with that crazy option offense that they have. Do you know how many?
No, I don't know what they had.
How many yards on the ground they had this week and all that.
But, the new athletic director saying that our programs should be in the top third. And if you look at the top third of the AAC in football, it's featured at some point or another 4 ranked teams.
Yeah.
So that's at Navy, Houston, Temple, and Memphis. So you see where UCF's got to go to get into that conversation.
Right back to where they were.
Not too long ago.
Yeah.
Right?
So, yeah.
Right.
Well, one positive thing that did happen this week, basketball. Basketball won their first game on Saturday night, 65-54 over North Carolina Greensboro. Knights are now 1-2, and they go to Miami of Ohio on Saturday afternoon. And here is what Donnie Jones had to say after the victory the other night.
Nice to get a win. It's been an interesting week here. It's our third game in 7 days, and newer guys were probably come out a little mentally worried about a little bit of a letdown. Coming off 2 emotional games where we were in those games down to the stretch, and this young team's still trying to find themselves. But I'll give UNCG credit; they played extremely well and got confidence in it. And I thought our guys, I'm really proud how we closed the game out this time. That's been our focal point here the last couple of days. It's how you finish. So I've seen our energy level change. We got the lead. We got down. We came back. And I thought our guys did a great job pulling together. And there was a lot of selfless efforts tonight. I mean, you had Daquan Walker come in, 11 rebounds at the guard spot tonight with 7 assists. That was huge with only 1 bucket. And you had A.J. Davis. I commend him tonight. Been easy for him to come in and take 10 or 12 shots, being the leading scorer last game. And he comes in, gets 6 assists, 6 rebounds, and he takes 5 shots in the game. So he made some big plays down the stretch when we moved him over to the point guard spot. And then obviously brought in Justin McBride at the end, who sparked us. we knew we had an advantage in the paint, and we put Justin in down the stretch and really lifted us and did some great things. But obviously Shaheed Davis was the high point guy tonight. It was his night. I'm really proud of how he bounced back and he let his shots come to him tonight, and he did a great job. I thought tonight was one of his best performances here.
Who also had his best performance was 7'6", Taco Fall. Has brought a lot of buzz to the games.
Absolutely,
it's exciting.
yeah.
And in that game, the home opener, the two 7'6" guys, you were courtside snapping photos, which you can find on Facebook, and you.
Yeah, I posted them on Twitter. I will put a link to them on our website as well. Yeah. So
what was that like to get the opening tip with these two?
Well, I didn't know if the referee was going to be able to throw the ball high enough. To be honest with you, I mean, because he was like maybe 5'8", 9 or something, and he was like looking up and like. I didn't know if he was going to be able to wing the ball up there so they could even have a fair tip-off. I mean, that's amazing to see two guys that are 7'6" play like that. Did you know that UCF is the 7th largest team in all of NCAA basketball?
No.
The average, they are. I know, even with our shorter guys. You know, we have a couple small guys. Daquan is kind of a small guy, and then B.J. Taylor's kind of a small guy too, but yes, number 7 we rank.
I know you won't know who were the top 6, but that UC Irvine had the 7'6" guy and had a 7'2" guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're pretty tall.
I mean, we've got a couple guys that are big. I mean, you know, Justin McBride is a big guy, and you know, so I'm just glad that they won. I want to see them win more. I think when B.J. Taylor gets back, they're going to even, you know, win more. I think that when the whole thing, you know, finally they figure out the lineup, and they figure out how to use Taco and Justin McBride. McBride had a great game the other night. He really turned it on
right down the stretch
at the end,
yeah,
which needed to happen, and that's great for him. Shaheed had
it's been a different lead scorer and star in each of the games.
That's great though, because then you see that all these guys can do that. So, and Taco Fall, of course, had the most points that he's scored. He had a great game.
And on ESPN, I was driving back from the game talking to my sister, and I mentioned this, and my nephew had already known about the 7'6" guys because he'd seen it, the highlights on ESPN. So he's good for buzz. And
it's amazing the buzz that this kid gets even around campus. Because
very
we
friendly.
were walking to the stadium, and behind us we heard, "There's Taco Fall! There's Taco Fall!" And he was in the cafeteria there the nights.
Students were banging on the glass.
Yeah, banging on the glass. I mean, he is an absolute superstar on the campus, and that's cool to have.
He goes
a guy
to
like
other
that.
sports. He goes to other games.
Yeah.
I saw him at volleyball on Friday night, so
Yeah.
he checks in at other things and seems real nice. Talks to everybody.
Yeah.
Very friendly.
How cool is that to have a guy like that on campus? I think that's awesome. Buzz needs to be around the sports no matter how you get it. I'd rather get it positively than negative, but still, any press is good press.
Do you like how he dunks? He barely jumps up.
Yeah,
he
kind
hops
of
a little bit.
bends down though and plays lower than just straight up and down at 7'6". Though, if you watch him play a little bit, he actually, you know, kind of, I don't know if the word slump would be. I don't know. He kind of bends down though, and he's not all 7'6" of himself all the time when he's
For
playing.
him to have 11, 12 points there in the third game, freshman, hadn't practiced for that stretch with the NCAA eligibility
yeah.
issues. He has grown in a short period of time.
There was
grown.
Yes,
Grown.
there was definite improvement from the Wednesday night game, even.
Yeah.
Where I said a couple times that he looked, you know, lost out there and didn't know what to do. A couple times he just, held on to the ball and was just like, "What do I do?" Obviously, that didn't happen. I did not see him do that on Saturday night, so that's impressive. He's an impressive guy, and man, I hope that he can lead us to a bunch of victories.
Agreed. Also impressive are Knights in the NFL. Head-to-head with UCF on Thursday night, Blake Bortles and the Jags.
I bet that they had a few more people watching.
Had a few more people. Well, the ratings, I haven't seen the ratings yet. Clad in the gold uniforms.
Ugly.
That's not that gold was tough, wasn't it? That's not really gold. Some
Yeah,
sort of
it was
mustard or something.
It was like baby poop.
But the Jags are right in the mix there in the AFC South race. At the volleyball game Sunday, I was checking out the NFL scores and glanced down to the Lions-Raiders game. Former night kicker Matt Prater had field goal. Then I saw Latavius Murray with the touchdown. So good to see the UCF players be the stars in that game. Brandon Marshall also in the end zone for the Jets in a losing effort for the Jets. But UCF guys, every weekend you can see somebody.
I see Brashad Perryman was put on injured reserve.
Kind of delayed on that.
Yeah. I mean, they just did that
just
now?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That
I don't know why they didn't do
PCL in his right knee kept him off the field all season long.
Yeah. That's kind of weird. So, I don't know. You say also here, former UCF wide receiver Doug Gabriel fired as head coach at East River High School following a 1-9 season. Gabriel played 4 seasons in the NFL with the Oakland Raiders and the New England Patriots.
Yeah, part of wide receiver.
2 teams that I do not like.
Yeah, you do not like those. McCray brothers are back. Justin and Jordan, mainstays on UCF's offensive line a few seasons back. They'll be staying local, signing with the Arena League's Orlando Predators.
I wonder if they'll be here any longer than the last guy that signed with them, Torian Wilson.
Yeah. Maybe that's why. They signed in hopes that they get on an NFL roster next week.
I can tell you right now that line has gained 2 very impressive players, and that's, I mean, brothers, number one, and twins. So you could technically have the same player in 2 positions.
Don't you wish you could have them back
man.
on this year's offensive line?
I think that's been a huge, huge issue, and we miss those guys horribly. So
on the broadcast, one of the benefits of rewatching it is you get to hear their little conversations that they have about UCF. There have only been 11 schools, they said during Thursday's broadcast, that have lost all their games in a season, and if it happens with UCF, it'll be the first team to do it twice since 2004.
Wow. That's not a good. It's not a good place to be.
It's not a good stat. The other winless team this year. Do you know that team? They showed the worst teams in the country. I wanted to take a picture of that and send you. Kansas, and you know what? The bar over in Orlando got a lot of pub during the broadcast.
Really?
They talked about the 11,000 glasses of beer given out so far.
I think Kansas is going to get it back together in a few years, hopefully. It's ever since Mark Mangino was fired there.
Bring him here. Throw that name into the hat.
I'm fine with that. I'd be perfectly fine with that. I know what he can do. He was just fired at Iowa State as well. So
he's available.
He did a heck of a job. He beat some players or something, I guess, though. Whipped him with, I don't know what
That's
the
not
problem
good.
was. It was bad. That's why he got fired after the Orange Bowl win that we had there.
Maybe we don't need that.
Yeah, we don't need that. But I think we do need some news and notes. And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports. Women's hoops winning big in the home opener on Tuesday, 89-72 over FIU, and again on Friday night beating Florida A&M 93-55. 7 nights in double figures against the Rattlers as UCF improves to 2-1. Next up at South Alabama Tuesday night before returning home Saturday for the UCF Thanksgiving Classic with games against Buffalo and Butler.
Buffalo. Where have we heard that school before? Volleyball closed out its home season. Back-to-back 3-0 losses to Memphis Friday, Cincinnati Sunday. Next up, this weekend, season-ending road swings to Tulsa and SMU.
Men's hoops inks 3 players, 6'8" forward. I don't know how to say that. Brockton Haysden out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. 6'5" forward Clayton Hughes from Jackson, Tennessee, and 6'1" guard Jeremy Shepard from Richmond, Virginia.
2 out of those 3 were easy.
Yeah.
New Knights.
Yeah, that's good. They need to get that going. I mean, the more recruits that he can get, Donnie Jones and all that, the better the basketball program will be. That's good. I'm glad to see that he's having success recruiting at least, and we're getting people from really all over the place.
3 out-of-state guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that this has been episode number 61.
You think it's been.
I am Andrew Phegley.
I'm Trace Trylko. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Go Knights!
Charge on.
UCF Knights! UCF UCF charge onto the field. With our spirits we'll never yield. Black and gold charge right through the line. Victory is our cry, B-S-E-T-O-R.